Welcome everyone to an episode of the Old-Timers comic book show. As you remember last time, I was ably helped out by Al Mega, but back from his vacay, back to talk school comics, we have the Professor.
Hi, Johnny. How you doing?
I'm very well, sir. How are you? How was the holiday?
Oh, it was fabulous. Recharged the batteries, ready to go.
Cool, excellent. And of course, 13th is still out on a mega secret mission to dig up old comic books. He's been on outside the panels. He's a friend of the show. He offered to be a guest. So who could say no to Mr. Joe St. Pierre? Joe.
That's right. The 13th won't be back. I just want you guys to know he's not coming back. I'll be filling in for him. Something happened.
Something happened on the way to. Okay.
He had a secret message that he won't be back from.
Yeah.
I didn't have anything to do with it.
Not at all. All right. So, Joe, for everyone who recognizes your name and for those that don't, run us through the catalog that is your Marvel work. You're predominantly a Marvel guy, right?
I would say most people know me from my Marvel work, but my first gigs were at Valiant Comics. And from there, I kind of sprung off over to Marvel. I did a crap ton of Spider-Man and Venom stuff back in the day. Little DC, little Image, little IDW, Boom. I'm also a commercial artist, video game character designer. I've dabbled in a lot of stuff. Cool. And I'm the creator of the new Zodiacs, which comes out, phase 2 comes out this year. Comes out in July.
I expect my royalties for the characters that I gave you on our earlier chat.
Yes. Checks in the mail.
Okay. Is it the same amount I'm paying you for this show?
You said a phrase. What was the phrase you said the last show when we were on Outside the Panels? You said I gave you a phrase which I forgot again.
What did that? Oh, was it the mass exodus? Was that not the one?
No, that's not it.
No.
You really.
You Jack Kirby'd me by taking my creations.
Yeah, something like that. I forget what it was.
I've been Kirby'd.
You're Kirby.
Fabulous.
I was taking notes the whole time he was talking off camera.
Yeah, I'm like, what can I say? I'm an inspiration machine. What can I say?
That's right. That's where the machine comes from.
I see that many comic books, right?
Right.
All right. So, as we know, Old-Timers celebrates everything that's a little bit gone in the past. All right. So, as I was talking to Joe over on Outside the Panels, Joe mentioned, and we showed some images of this bad boy. Boom. Mega
graphics.
Whoa, look at that. Cool. So, Joe, it's the 25th anniversary for this character, for this book for you. Is it safe to say he's a quietly known character?
Quietly known?
Oh, yeah. Or is he massive?
Such a nice way to phrase that. I like that. I would say probably unknown character.
I'm too polite. I'm British, right? So
yeah, right. Well, I appreciate that very much. I'm going to move to Britain tomorrow. Actually, I need more polite people in my life. Yeah, it was my first creator-owned project. Created Megahertz with my friend Dave Klistic, and we published that through Image Comics 25 years ago this year. So had it all colored up by me, and we're going to release it for the first time in color in print this year. Cool. And so we did. When I was on Outside the Panels, we were talking about the Kickstarter. The Megahertz 25th anniversary edition was part of that Kickstarter. Cool. And it was also part of a Zoop campaign, which just ended on Friday. So we've
successfully
got successfully. Both very met the goals plus. So cool. Thanks to everybody who did that. And so we're going to do Megahertz. Hopefully that'll be out in July as well.
Cool, excellent. So what's the story? Tell us about the character. What's the premise of the whole book?
It's kind of like capitalism at the end of its phase, where corporations are literally eliminating the competition. They hire biologically enhanced, bionically generated mutations to assassinate one another. And Megahertz is a product of the N Corporation. There's a rival corporate CEO named Adrian Adonis, who's kind of giving the N Corporation a run for its money.
Okay.
And they literally create Megahertz to assassinate him. So that's the gist of the story.
Cool. Excellent. So you've added the colors, you've added the inks, and you've written the book with your friend. Which of the creative elements do you find first the easiest, and then of course the flip side, which is the hardest?
Yeah. Oh, that's a good question. Well, the easiest part is especially with Megs, was the ideas. You know, when you got a good solid idea, you can kind of create a good solid cast to play off the main character. Then the ideas just start pouring in. It's crazy. You know, I could do. I've got loose plot lines to do 3 graphic novels with this character. Cool. So, you know, they've just kind of been floating around. And one of the ideas that appeared in Megahertz was the idea of kind of like a hacker who accesses the web psychically with his mind. And those were called, at the time, they were called the Liberators. And I just kind of pulled that idea out for my new Zodiac's character, the Liberator. I thought there was more there that we could develop. You know, besides, I didn't want to just leave that character behind in the Megahertz universe. Yeah. So I pulled that character out of the Megahertz series and developed him on his own. So if you buy the Megahertz book, you'll see like a precursor or a prototype design, I guess, for the Liberator character.
Excellent.
So, the hardest part for me is you know, each phase of the process, and my favorite part of the process is the page design, the layouts. Once I get a page broken down, like thumbnailed out, I'm kind of done with it. So the idea of having to pencil it and then ink the same thing and then color the same piece, it's annoying to me. So it's actually a challenge. So I'd say probably if I'm coloring it, it's probably the coloring phase. But looking for a regular colorist, if anybody's out there listening, who's a professional comic book colorist.
Let's see. I think I know a couple I could send you over.
I was gonna say Johnny knows a bunch of them, probably.
Yeah. Send me a few names and portfolios.
Yeah. Leave that with me. I'll see if I can drum some up for you.
Okay. Now I know why I came here.
Hey. Bud, you had a chance to look through the pages we had. What do you think?
I did, and kind of looking back, and I'm glad that this book is kind of, we just got it in under the wire for the 25-year-old rule that we have, and I kind of liked your idea that you were using as far as like the virtual reality went, and just to see it now compared to 25 years before, how did you think virtual reality was really going to kind of be on the forefront like it is kind of today?
Yeah, there's a lot of facets of that book while we were developing. We were trying to anticipate, you know, the near future. That's kind of like how I behave anyway. But, you know, the idea that there would be robot drones at the bottom of the ocean, virtual reality, celebrity criminal presidents, celebrity CEOs, cyber warfare, all of these things we had in this book, you know, predicted. We kind of unwittingly predicted 25 years ago.
Wait a second. What you're saying is your book was the blueprint that these people used.
Oh
my God, it's all Joe's fault. Joe! Someone called 911.
So it reads more almost like a satire now when you look at it and you flip through it and you can say, oh, there's the you know, I know a president that maybe looks like that without minus the dollar signs on the eyes. And I thought it was really kind of you know, of its time now.
Yeah, so, look at the Republican National Convention when Trump came out. There's a scene in this book which is exactly like that.
Right.
where he comes out of this mist backlit by floodlights and stuff like that. It's in his friggin' book, dude.
Yeah.
It's weird.
It is. It is. It was very weird when I was flipping through it. When I was reading it this morning, I was like, "This is just amazing."
So when we originally pitched it, it was supposed to be, this is so goofy that it could never happen. It was meant to be like Frankenstein meets The Simpsons.
Right.
You know, it was meant to be like people would never create this Frankenstein cyborg monster to assassinate another fellow CEO. You know what I mean? It was supposed to be, this is absurd. This is goofy. They would never have, you know, the US population would never allow things to get so crazy that you would need a celebrity huckster to represent the presidency of the United States. So we were throwing out ideas, Dave and I. It was supposed to be satire. It was imagine if this. It's like, that's so goofy. Let's go with it. Yeah. And then suddenly it happened. You know, the idea that VR would be so relevant. It would be essentially the next drug.
Yeah.
You know, the next pandemic drug or the next epidemic. Like a virtual narcotic. You know,
well, there's that film, isn't there, with Bruce Willis, where they use virtual reality. What's that called?
Is it The Fifth Element?
No, where they can they plug themselves into a chair and send like a different version of themselves out into the world.
Oh, 12 Monkeys.
No, that's a time travel one.
That's a time travel. Yeah.
I'm gonna have to. It's gonna stick with me on that.
I'm trying to think of a Bruce Willis movie that I liked. So I'm sorry.
Die Hard. No, it's not.
Well, Die Hard is okay.
I have one more question for Joe about this book. So this was a creator-owned book put out from Image. What was it like dealing with Image early on in their existence?
Yeah, that was so laid back. It was pretty crazy. We had originally made a deal with a different publisher at the time, and we had just gotten the orders in from Diamond for this publisher, and the orders were like something like 500 copies. And just at that moment, it was a weird kind of confluence of events. Just at that moment, I somehow got Eric Larson's contact info, and so I was like, just for the hell of it, you know, let's see if Image will bite. So I contacted Eric. He said he would look at the materials. Long story short, he looked at it and he calls me up. He goes, "Yeah, we'll do this."
Nice.
And it was originally called, the character was originally called Bludgeon. And so his only take was, you know, this is great. We'll take this. But you can't call him Bludgeon because I have a character called Bludgeon. And I guess there's a Savage Dragon villain named Bludgeon. So we were like, okay, well, can we change this guy's name overnight? Yes. And we came up with Megahertz, and I think that's a better name, actually.
Yeah. It's great wordplay.
Yeah.
I have a question. When you go back, Surrogates is the movie that I'm thinking of. There you go.
Well, Surrogates?
Surrogates.
Okay, I'll look for that.
So, yeah, it was all right. It's quite clever. It's futuristic in its places. Find these part. Write it down. Right. My question was this: so the book came out originally 25 years ago. You've got an opportunity to go back and recolor it, put the colors on. Were you tempted to go back and change any of the art? Because as an artist, your style would have changed from when you first did the book to how you are now. Were you not tempted to change a few things up?
Yeah, I wanted to redraw the whole thing. And like I said, I've got 3 volumes. You know, I've got 3 graphic novel trades. So that's 3 times 128 worth of story, which would fill in blanks and explain things more clearly. So I wanted to retool the script as well. But I stopped all that right away. The main reason was because this is the book that came out 25 years ago. Cool. And when I wrote this book 25 years ago, it was meant to be what it is. It was meant to be what it is. Like, it was meant to be that kind of capsule introduction to the universe. And then as the series progressed, we would fill in blanks and we would elaborate on that first issue. You keep coming back to that, the way that, say, people keep coming back to Superman's origin, or they keep coming back to Batman's origin. One of the more recent storylines that Batman was like when Bruce Wayne went off on his pilgrimage to get trained by all the experts in all the different fields. He had a competitor. He had a guy who went along with him, who eventually became Ghostmaker. Is that his name?
Yeah, that's his name. Yeah.
So in the same way that, we still fill in the Batman origins 80 years later, we were meant to come back to this one issue each time, as the story progressed. It just so happened that the book didn't sell so great, so we turned it into a mini series.
Well, I don't know if it. I've done some research. As I always do. You can get this book. You can get this book in the UK. You have to order it from the States. It will cost you anywhere between. So this is the first original #1 from 25 years ago. Not the Kickstarter book that's coming out now, because you have to bid for that. So back then, you can get the original as it was, first issue, for anywhere between. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
I pretty much know, but go ahead. You're not going to be shocked.
£4 to £7.
That's not bad. It's worth it.
I think that's pretty good. When you think back 25 years ago, I mean, Image weren't the big deal they were now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so there's nothing guaranteed about it, and even now, Image put out books. Some of them are absolutely fantastic, and some of them are absolutely they don't move. You know? But they've got the same lost lead mentality that the big two have.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is lost leaders are books that publishers can put out, knowing that there's going to be a small select of few fans that are going to pick them up, but they'll be buying the other things as well. You know, so for everyone that buys the Spider-Woman book, for example, they're probably going to buy Captain Marvel. So one leads into the other, a lost leader.
That's one way to look at it. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Cool.
Just so you know, there is a San Diego Comic-Con version of Megahertz, which came out 25 years ago. It has a solid black back cover. There were 3,000 of those. And those are much more rare, but nobody, only I seem to know that those exist.
He's got 2,900 of them in his garage.
Yeah. I mean, nobody refers to them anywhere. I don't see on eBay, it says World Premiere Edition on the front cover, and the back cover is completely black. There are 3,000 of those. So I have 2,900 of those. But I don't know if those make it to market or if people even know those exist in market. So that's not. I don't do these comics. I don't do comics so that they become collectible. I'm aware of the collector's market, and I'm aware that there are people that buy things just because they have a certain cover on it, or they don't even read the interiors, and they throw them in a plastic case and hang them on their wall. It's a prerogative to do that, but I just do what I do, and whatever happens.
We have a friend, don't we, Professor, who likes to speculate a tad.
Oh, we do. Yes, the speculator market is huge with this.
He's always given DC crap for not having a great speculative market out there, but
that's a show in itself, isn't it?
Pretty much. How come Marvel managed to get loads of collectibles out there, but DC?
It's so weird. If it's not Batman, it's not collectible. I don't understand that.
I don't understand that. I mean, I've bought a couple of covers recently. I flipped a comic a couple of weeks ago. I flipped Lady Thor's first appearance.
Ooh, is that the What If? Is that What If?
No. The run from Aaron's.
The first issue. Okay.
Yeah. I managed to I sold that, and I got £40 for it. Couldn't believe it.
Wow.
I thought I'd get more for it, but but instead, with the money, I bought this bad boy. Check that out. This is the Killing
Catwoman?
Time Catwoman cover. It's limited to like 1 in 25 or something, and I managed to pick it up for £22.
Nice.
So got rid of a Thor comic to get that one. So there you go.
Nice.
Um,
And
I
what
have-
made you buy that instead of the Thor comic?
well,
Is that a first appearance, or you just like the
no,
cover?
no, I just like the cover.
So the 1 in 25 makes it somewhat rare, and
Yeah, but I also
Okay.
have the regular cover as well. You know what
yeah.
I'm saying? So I bought the regular for my collection to read, and that is going in a frame.
So did you buy that cover for speculative reasons? You think it'll be
No.
worth more than the Thor cover? Oh, so you
I
just liked it.
I just liked it, so I
Oh.
bought it. That's
That's
I
the
don't-
best way to do it, I
I
think.
don't I
Me
really
too.
don't I don't speculate because I am terrible at it. I
Yeah.
am absolutely, you know.
Well,
what do
ask
you
the
mean?
professor. He's an investment advisor. He's
Well, yeah. He says
what the
go
hell,
buy.
right?
He told me to buy X-Men comics. What's he know?
I was in, yeah. We
What's
could
the
talk
blue
about it.
chip comic book, Professor? Is that an X-Men book?
The blue chip comic book?
Yeah. What would
anything
be the
goes.
one that won't
Anything,
lose value?
Action Comics #1.
Well, besides the classics, let's not even go.
The
let's
speculator, the market right now, any of these Silver Age Marvels are just taking off like you wouldn't believe. You would think they were expensive before, but now,
Yeah.
you're looking at like an Avengers #4 going for, what did we talk about, like $45,000 or something now for just a mid-grade copy. It is really, really super prohibitive to actually get into collecting Silver Age stuff, But right
Hey,
now,
I heard X-Force #1 and X-Men #1 by Liefeld and Jim Lee were going to pay people through college. So
oh yeah, I have
I used
several.
to say that. I was
those
there
copies.
when I was there. I was a noob in the industry when that
Yeah.
stuff was happening.
Yeah.
People, we're going to talk about secret weapons in a few minutes, but people were buying Valiant comics by the caseload and not even reading them, thinking it's like these are going to be worth 10 grand a pop.
Just for the
20 years.
name recognition of Jim Shooter, thinking that he was going to be like the next thing with Bob Layton and Joe St. Pierre and
Barry Windsor Smith. One of the major artists.
I love Barry Windsor Smith. I absolutely love his work. I loved his Machine Man.
Let's all bow to Barry Windsor Smith.
We can, but the professor doesn't. Professor doesn't like him. So
Professor doesn't like Barry Windsor Smith.
He's an acquired taste. He's an acquired taste.
Wow, really?
So
acquired to how do you acquire? You just look at it and you acquire it.
My first exposure to Barry Windsor Smith was when he did the Weapon X in Marvel Comics Presents. Was the first time I'd ever seen his art, other than Life Death on X-Men. And so I read that, and then the Marvel Comics Present stuff, and it was jarring to me because I just wasn't used to the style. But over time, you get appreciation from these artists when you're younger that you kind of don't get. Like Gene Colan. We've talked about Gene Colan a million times, Johnny, and how when I was younger, I just didn't get it. But as I'm older, and I picked up Tomb of Dracula or something and flip through that and just be like, oh my God, this is so much better in like black and white. I didn't understand the shading or the blacks or the like how storytelling goes when I was like 15.
I think you guys did an episode about Colan, did you? Or you mentioned him?
He has been mentioned a few times.
Yes.
We very much I think we did him as part of our Unsung Heroes, didn't we?
I believe we did.
That sounds familiar. Yeah. Colan is a god. Nobody looks like Gene Colan in it nowadays. Nobody draws like him.
I think my first Barry Windsor Smith was the Machine Man.
And
from Marvel.
Machine Man transformed the character, right? A lame, C-list character, and you have one of the great artists coming onto this book.
Two of the greats. I mean, Ditko was on it for a while.
Yeah, that's true.
In the day.
Yep.
Yeah. So
Ditko first, and then Smith.
Well, Kirby did it first, right? Kirby did the first 8 issues, and then Ditko did like the next 8 issues, and then it got canceled.
Didn't Kirby do everything but Spider-Man, right? First 8 of everything.
Yeah.
Cool. We're going to take a break before we get into our next book. We've got the Professor and we've got Joe. So seems obvious we have to play this particular ad. All right, here we go. It's a No Price podcast.
Oh, geez. It's not our private video, is it, Professor?
Uh-oh.
Over 18s only. Thanks very much. There you go, the No Price podcast for everything that's Marvel, Disney Plus, and the MCU all rolled into one. Episode dropped yesterday. Go check it out. There's some Obi-Wan love on there as well. So, one of the few places you'll find some Obi-Wan love, apparently.
Very true.
Wow.
All right. Next up. Hello there.
Hello there.
We should all have a line. There you go. We've got Secret Weapons. This is number 1. This is from August 1993.
Wow, 93, really?
Yeah. Written and drawn by Joe St. Pierre, with inks by Bob. Is it Whitecheck?
Whitecheck.
Right? Yeah, cool. Thank you. And colors by Mike. Is it Cavallero?
Cavallero, yes.
Yeah,
who is a giant in his own right now.
Cool. So this is the Valiant's version of the Avengers or the Justice League, depending on what your point of view is. Correct, Joe? Yeah. How did this book come about?
It was kind of like that. We need an Avengers kind of team, and so for some reason, Bob Layton decided that I would write and draw this book. I don't recall the exact reasons how I got the book, but
okay.
I have a quick question. Was this your first writing?
No, I had written a fill-in for Shadow Man previously to this, and I think it was Barry Windsor Smith. Like I said, he was kind of like a mainstay in the office, along with Bob and Jim Shooter for a while. Jim was not at Valiant when I was offered Secret Weapons. So I would say Barry Windsor Smith and Bob Layton probably decided to assign me this book. I forgot your question. I apologize.
So how did it come about? What?
It was basically we need an Avengers kind of team.
Yeah.
And so it was my kind of I think I was Bob was the editor at the time, and he was very hands-on as to we need this to happen, we want this to happen, this issue, we want this to happen. And so it was, if I recall correctly, it wasn't like a solid, you would always have a regular team. It was always meant to have a regular influx of characters, and some would be, and Solar would be in some issue and not in another, and that kind of thing. And so we kind of created a core cast from which the main heroes would kind of interact with. And that was Geomancer and Livewire and Stronghold, the two Harbingers.
Yeah.
And those were the kind of like the core characters. And the way I tried to treat the series was kind of like, do you remember when the Avengers first had their first major lineup change, back in issue 16?
Yeah.
So they went from these high-powered players like Iron Man and Captain America, Giant Man. They went to these relatively lower tier kind of power sets. So it was Cap, Hawkeye, Quicksilver, and Scarlet Witch. So for me, Livewire and Stronghold and Geomancer was that area of the Avengers, and then the larger big guns would kind of come in and interact with them or go on the adventure appropriate for those characters. That was the idea.
Cool. There's a lot of Shadow Man in this. I like the whole mystic element of the book. How Dr. Eclipse comes back around and causes all sorts of mayhem left,
Mhm.
right, and center.
Mhm.
When it came to creating this book for Valiant, were you concerned at creating a villain that had the power set to take on board like the Valiant heroes? Because I mean, you look at that cover, you have Solar, you've got Exo, you've got Gilead, the Eternal Warriors on there.
Yeah.
You know, these are, as you said, these are the big guns of the Valiant. You've got Bloodshot before he became, you know, a dodgy action movie.
Yeah. Dodgy action movie. Yes. There were a lot of things. And when I looked at the material, it's been a while since I looked at this. Excuse me. When I was looking at this material, I remembered a bunch of stuff. I think a lot of this, the Valiant was really big on the interactive continuity thing. Like, you know, one issue, what happened in this issue needs to happen in this issue. And I don't remember whose idea it was at the time, but there's a character named Fred Bender who was in a previous issue of Solar. And I think, and Bender is the guy who becomes Dr. Eclipse. So there was a lot of thought in the offices about, if you use this character from this issue of Solar, this book becomes collectible. If you do this, you know, if you don't cancel Rye and relaunch as Rye in the Future Force, issues 1 through 8 of Rye are still collectible because there's no cutoff there. There's still, you know, so there was a lot of thought about that kind of stuff. So I'm sure I didn't come up with that idea, but it was probably Bob or maybe marketing, you know, John Hart's at marketing, who said, let's make a, you know, a villain that can take on this many of the Valiant characters. And let's make it this guy, Fred Bender, and make him super powerful. And Dark, I think, had just premiered in Eternal Warrior recently, about that same time. So now he's a collectible character. And so the idea that Dark creates Dr. Eclipse, all of that kind of flows together. And there are scenes later on in the book which are direct reconstructions of scenes from Rise Zero, which also came out like a couple months before that. So Rise Zero was like a speculative piece of crap that was just a bunch of, it was just a bunch of scenes kind of predicting the Valiant future.
Right.
And so I again, I don't recall who came up with the idea, but somebody decided that all those scenes that you had read in Rise Zero that were speculative about the Valiant future, they're happening now. This is the moment where those scenes come into play, when all the team is assembled by the Geomancer. They become the secret weapons.
Cool. So there's a scene that I really liked, and had to. Is it in this one? I'm sure it is. Where's it at? Where is it? I'll find this. Is there a homage to the poltergeist, the Omen in this? Is that
The Exorcist.
The Exorcist.
There's an Exorcist swipe, early in the story. Yes.
Yeah, I'm
There
sure.
are actually quite a few swipes in there, I noticed.
Well, I wasn't going to go that far. Where is it? There it is. Yay!
Yes, that's the Exorcist.
I knew I'd spot it.
Good catch, bud.
I was like, whoa, look at that. That's cool. Bud, questions?
I said Bud. I meant Buddy, not Bud, the professor.
fine.
I meant Johnny.
That's fine.
I knew what you meant.
Bud as friend.
So, looking back through this issue today, I was amazed at how kind of nostalgic I felt at because I was one of those speculators on the ground floor of Valiant when they first launched, because I followed Jim Shooter from Marvel over to Valiant, and then started
There's a
picking
swipe
up.
right there, by the way. That bottom right is Sin City came out about the same time.
Okay.
That's a swipe. That's me trying to draw like Frank Miller.
I just have a quick question for Bud on this one now. Follows Jim Shooting everywhere. Does that mean you bought Defiant comics as well?
The Valiant, and then I followed him over to the other company, Defiant. Yes.
Now, When
Oh
you
my
when you say you followed him, you were reading. What were you reading at Marvel? Was he writing at Marvel? when you
No,
were
no, I
following?
was just I was kind of Marvel zombie, and
Okay.
with Jim as the editor in chief, I kind of attributed a lot of the who was driving the bus, and so when he went over to Valiant, I was like, oh, I liked Marvel before they fired him, and let me take a look at Valiant, and it'd be a good chance to get on the ground floor with some of these characters. I was familiar with Torok. Because of the old, was it Gold Key that he was published from?
Yeah.
Because when I was a kid, my dad would get me these comics at the store, the collectible, like the 3-packs or whatever, and you always had like a Torok, the dinosaur hunter. I wasn't familiar with Magnus Robot Fighter or Solar, which are the other 2 licensed characters that Valiant picked up, right? But I was a huge fan of Shadow Man. I loved Exo Manowar. I thought they were visually different enough to be original. I thought Shadowman was a huge original character, which was something that even back in 1985 Marvel or 1989 Marvel 1990, we weren't getting a lot of originality, right? Everything was still kind of the same, and not a lot of new characters coming out. So I was interested in all this. And remember how tough to get Harbinger ended up being? Harbinger was like the hardest book to find the first couple of issues, and it wasn't when you go back. I don't think those few issues of Harbinger actually hold up to like the value that they were back then. Everything was speculative back then.
Yeah.
But this one, so Secret Weapons, I actually liked it because it was the first time. And at this point, Valiant Universe is a couple of years old, right? And this is the first time we're getting a team book with all these characters that had previously not really even interacted a lot with each other, right? I mean, you had they mention Exo meeting Eternal Warrior at some point that they didn't get along, but Bloodshot's still relatively new, and Geomancer. This is Geomancer's first appearance, right? And he ends up spinning out into his own.
Geomancer had been around for a while.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Did he appear in Eternal Warrior or
Yes.
something like that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And I really liked the characters that you picked for this book. And when I saw Shadow Man, made me remember how much I liked the character. So,
and that was when Shadow Man was kind of transforming or getting revamped as well. He got the biker outfit and his hair went wild and stuff like that.
Is that the Ghost Rider influence then?
Yeah, I wonder if it's a Ghost Rider thing, or I'm not sure what inspired the biker look, but maybe it was a Ghost Rider thing.
It was super slick when he first started, wasn't he?
Yeah.
It was like practically just like a shadow. He's just a black form.
It's just like a unitard he wore. Yeah. And then
almost like
face
a
mask,
like a Shade the Changer Man type of look, where it was just part of whatever.
Yeah. The other thing that it's like I'm trying to remember all this stuff about the Valiant universe from 30 years ago now, but that there weren't a lot of like supervillains. Like there weren't a lot of really big supervillains, but Master Dark seemed to me to be like the Doctor Doom of the Valiant universe, right? And he was probably designed to be that way. Did they tell you which characters you're going to pick? Did you get to pick any of the characters you put in there?
I'm pretty sure that was probably suggested by Bob. Bob, like I said, he was very hands-on as to, okay, this person's going to be in this issue, this person's going to be in this issue, and that kind of thing. It was probably Bob, but I honestly don't recall. I could check notes at the time that I might have, but I would say it was probably Bob.
I'm going to be honest. I was never a big Solar fan. I always thought it was just too powerful.
Either. Yeah, he's one of those guys it's hard to write because he's like Superman. He's way too powerful.
Yeah. And I thought he'd being boring as a result of that, I think.
Yeah, and I think Superman, and to some extent Captain Marvel now, those characters are grounded by the cast. That's why Captain Marvel has such a huge cast. That's why Superman has Lois and Perry and Jimmy. They ground those characters that make the human interaction the more interesting bit rather than the pulling off the shirt sort of thing. With Solar, he hadn't had that history. I'm not sure how much of the Gold Key continuity Valiant kept. Gold Key predates even me, so
yeah. So the Gold Key stuff that Jim didn't really follow the Gold Key storylines. He kind of refashioned Solar to be more of a Dr. Manhattan character.
I love this panel, by the way.
Which one?
I love this whole page. I love.
Thanks.
Where he's putting popping his last fingers into his mouth.
Yes.
I think it's so clever. I just really like that panel. I love that page.
Yeah. We're going to talk about this with the Rocketeer. It's like I try to pay attention to character, and I try to make characters unique. You know, the things that they say, the things that they might do. I try. My brain is always focused on how do we make this guy unique from this other guy or this other character. And so for me, it was like it'd be cool for him to be. You know, he gave up his soul, so he's just kind of twisted. You know, he always struck me. The character kind of struck me as like a kind of like a shady salesman. You know, like a car salesman character. So you know, he's coming up with stupid lines and you know, but just soulless. You know, that's the kind of stuff that I was thinking for him.
I've got to say. I'll look through this book. I used to own this book back in the day.
I still do.
The reason why I don't own it is after I dropped out of comics for a while, and I sold all my collection to fund a move to Manchester, and then it's only been over the last 15 years that I've built my collection back up again. Okay. I'm looking at this book, and other than the quality of the paper, which works, you can see in the digital scans.
I was going to say, were these scans of an actual comic book? Because it looks old.
I could say art-wise, this could pass today. That's how good this book is.
You're very kind.
Artistically. I think it could. I absolutely, totally think it could. When I see so many of the same style art coming out from certain publishers, house styles and all that sort of stuff, you look at this book and it feels, I know it's an older book, but it feels fresh, it's exciting, it's fun to read. You've got crazy metaphysical elements like getting eaten. You've got the heroic poses by Exo in the top corner there. You know, you've got the Shadow Man turning up here, and it just makes sense. It's a really good kickoff for this run. And I'm really pleased Bud picked this to go back through. Really
I like the coloring a lot too. I thought the coloring worked pretty well.
We managed to get Valiant comics quite readily over in the UK. I think I had at one point, I had some Rye before it turned into the Future Force, which is where I dropped off that. We had some Eternal Warrior, Magnus the Robot Fighter. We had some Exo. I had a whole bunch of Valiant stuff.
You have the first 5 issues of Magnus as issue 0 and issue 1 through 4. I think are some of the best comics in the last 30 years. Have you read those?
I have them. Yeah.
look at down there. Oh, look at Billy Big Balls down there. I remember.
You know, I like, and I'm glad you brought up the coloring, Joe, because I thought Valiant's whole line really was bright. It was very bright. When I remember seeing or remembering now the colors, it was always really like there's a lot of pinks and greens, and you know, some of them work better than others. But Magnus itself was, I remember, just being very very colorful.
Yeah.
Rye, the first series of Rye was very, very eco-friendly.
Yeah.
Just saying. All right. Okay. Last up was my choice. We went full indie with Joe being on the show. Sorry. So we had a couple of looks at some of Joe's book. When I think indie books, for me, there are a couple of cult classics. Well, maybe 3. You've got The Shadow. You've got Vampirella, and you've got this dude. Probably for me, one of the key characters to come along that helped create the floor for indie creators, I think, from my point of view. And it's the Rocketeer. And this is the classic Rocketeer by Dave Stevens. This is a collection that was put together. So we've got as I said, story art by Dave Stevens, letters by Laura Martin, and letters from Carrie Spiegel. And if you're wondering why on earth I picked this if it's a collection, well, it's the only way I could see all this fantastic art, the cheesecake stuff. If you look at the blurb in here, this comes back from 1983. And why I've not given you any prices? Because you know what? It's really hard to find some Rocketeer stuff, man. So you've got to love the character for this. I love the Rocketeer. I loved it. I love the movie. I love the character. I love the cheesecake element of it. I love just how bonkers it is in places. It's cheesy. The art is cinema. I can't say the word. I was going to say cinematopic. I don't know if that's a word anymore. It carries great camera angles. It's got pace, and of course, it's got a Betty Page wannabe and Betty, who looks fantastic. And I own this book, by the way. Yes, she wears thigh highs. No, they're not fishnets, but can't have everything, right? I was looking through this book. I was amazed at how much from the movie is taken from this book. And I was quite surprised. I had to double check as I was reading. I was like, "Wait, this isn't the comic adaptation of the movie, is it?" And I went through it and found the dates on this, so no, it is not. But look at that! I mean, can you get a more classic look for a dude with a rocket pack strapped to his back? I have no idea. Cool, Joe. What was your take on the Rocketeer?
Well, I loved it. I have this book.
Hold on.
This is my experience with the Rocketeer.
Whoa! Look at that.
Which is a trade from the 80s,
cool.
which collected, I guess, the Rocketeer series up to that point. And so that's how I had always heard good things about it, so I bought it, and I've had it ever since. So yeah, loved it. The helmet design alone is worth its weight in gold, right? It's great.
Really? I thought
great design.
I thought it was Betty's legs that were worth the weight, but
yeah.
What can I say? Why has this character lasted so long? Then do you think?
Who can? Well, I can speculate, but I just want to show you this. Here's my favorite drawing in the book. I know this is going to shock many people.
Go for it. Where's the camera?
This one right here. The
hand on the telephone.
The hand on the phone, and the hand in the foreground is probably about 50% bigger, so it automatically creates this sense of, like there's a sense of action in two hands.
Cool.
That's not easy to do.
No,
in my opinion, and it might have been just that, just draw a hand, but there's a kinetic energy even in two hands. So how do I speculate? I would say it's the characters. I think if you read this book, there's not much of a story going on. It's basically the characters and how they interact with each other, and the characters, their motivations are what dictates the story, right? So I think that's probably that's what hooks me, or that's what I noticed about the series.
So this book came out. The original series started out in 1983. That's not long after Raiders of the Lost Ark. Do you think that some of that Raiders magic was reinventing the whole serial element of storytelling?
No, that's why I come on this show. I get me some contacts. I didn't put that together, but it makes sense, doesn't it?
I don't know. I'm just, as you say, I'm just speculating. I wasn't, I'm not Johnny the editor. I should be. God damn it.
Right. And there's a clear, even before Raiders, there's a pulp. There are characters in the story that are other pulp characters.
Yes.
So there's clearly an influence, even I would say that probably predates Raiders, where there's an interest in the pulp heroes of the time and probably the time period itself.
So so I mean, Betty in this is just Betty Page.
Betty Page, yeah,
it is Betty Page.
I was gonna shout that out, yeah.
And there is an RKO serial back from the God knows where it's called King of the Rocket Men, which which has a Tony Stark like character having a rocket pack and off he flies. It's if you ever get a chance to watch it, it is brilliant.
I gotta look for that.
Like the old
King
Flash
of the
Gordon
Rocket.
serials, it's the same.
Mhm.
King of the Rocket Men. Okay.
King of the Rocket Man. There you go.
And does he look like the Rocketeer?
In his suit, he does. In his suit, he does it. But outside the suit, he looks more like Tony Stark. But,
Oh, so there you go. So there's a
But
clear influence, clear research is being done. I think that kind of comes through, right?
Yeah.
And
Dave
Betty,
Stevens.
she's not from the 30s, though, right? She's like from
No.
the 50s, right?
But then, of course, this book came out in the 80s, so you get to blur
Yeah.
the
So there's
lines.
just kind of like a mashing of time
definitely.
periods. Yeah, that's cool. That's cool.
Yeah.
But what are your thoughts on the good old Rocketeer?
I was just I had to go back and look. I was like Dave Stevens because I wasn't familiar with his stuff, but I was like looking at the art and I'm like, is this Jerry Ordway? I was like, I had to flip it. I was like, who did the art? And I was like, oh, Dave Stevens wrote and drew it. And that's talent. When I can look back and have to think, that someone else I really admired did the artwork. I thought this was a huge shout out to all the Golden Age stuff, like the Action Comics, Detective Comics, where the super heroics aren't readily there on the page, but you have that the superhero kind of not being terribly super, right? He's just kind of wandering around, doing stuff like this. A lot of person to person scenes, but it all looked action like. The bad guys aren't super; they're just
the bad guys look bad.
German. It is to me. I thought this is one of the I love the dog restaurant.
Yes, yeah, that's great. That's great.
It's a great visual, right?
That's great.
How did you get hot dogs there?
Yeah. The chapter style of the book. I love that panel. The chapter style.
Which panel is that?
The one with the hand on the phone.
Yes, that other hand on the phone panel. This is the one I liked. But I liked the whole serial aspect of it. Really kind of makes reminiscent of the serials in the 30s and 40s, and where you kind of think you brought up Indiana Jones, so I don't want to beat the dead horse, but that's exactly what it kind of reminds me of. But yeah, it's like kind of like reminded me of like Siegel Schuster type, Slam Bradley or something like that, that old type classic storytelling, which I'm sure it was supposed to be this. So
sure, even the page designs with the circular panels and the captions with where the first letter of each caption is in its own circle. That's a very Golden Age visual trope that he was following. So
I thought it was great, and I remember the sheep showing all this great stuff. But I keep thinking, like in the Rocketeer, there's something about even back in the 80s where they pick up an indie property to make a movie out of. This is that's very rare, right? So I'm surprised they didn't make it.
It's not as rare as you think. I mean, you've got The Mask, you've got The Road to Perdition, you've got Men in Black, all are indie books.
Well, very true. But when did Rocketeer come out? Because I think did that predate all that? That Rocketeer predated Mask and Road to Perdition and all that stuff.
The direct, I kind of lived through some of this. I didn't pick up Rocketeer when it came out, but I do remember like when I used to buy my comic books at grocery stores and newsstands and stuff like that, and then comic book shops came into being, and they kind of revolutionized the industry a bit and allowed other smaller companies to sell directly to comic shops. And that's what brings on First Comics and Eclipse and all these other smaller publishers. And I'm going blank on which one it was, but The Rocketeer was a backup feature in a book called Star Slayer, which was created by Mike Grell. So So how a backup feature, which is published sporadically, gets the attention of movie people. I'd love to know that story. Do you guys know anything about that? Because it was very sporadically published. It wasn't a regular monthly anything. This book right here that I have is published in like 85.
Yeah.
And it's only got half the story. And the book
Yeah.
that you shared, which finishes the story, was published like in the late 90s, right?
Yeah. But it's a
So we're
collection
talking
of all the
about
different collections. Yeah. Definitely.
yeah. So we're talking about the Rocketeer came out long before the 90s, if I remember right. The movie, I mean. Do you know the year on the Rocketeer movie?
The Rocketeer came. I'll Google it now to check. But off memory, I'm going something like I'm going
to say 87. That's what I'm going to go with.
Yeah.
I'm going to go 91 just because.
Okay.
Really?
Well, even if you go as late as 91, the story still wasn't finished until later 90s, right?
1991.
Let me just it is 91. I'll share the screen so you can all see that I'm not cheating you.
I believe you.
Let me just show the world. There you go, 1991.
I've yet to see. I haven't seen this movie yet either.
I've
never heard a bad word about it. It just hasn't come across my.
So when you think about 91, then let's just cast our minds back. Batman had just dropped in 89 with Tim Burton's, so that's obviously opened the floodgates to oh my god, we can do comic book movies, right?
Yeah.
So to answer Joe's question, studios are probably scrambling around. Hand
What's
over
the
fist,
next big thing? Yeah.
Looking for not just the next big thing, but the next big thing they can do on the cheap. Because remember, CGI still was in its infancy back then.
I'm going to throw something out at you in a second. I just want to Google this to make sure that I know.
Oh, here we go.
Context.
Hold on. Yeah, because there was another movie that came out, and I think it was around that time. Nope, it wasn't. It was way. I was going to throw out The Phantom.
Oh, what year is The Phantom?
The Phantom was 1996 with Billy Zane, right? But that seemed like in the same genre as The Rocketeer, right? With the old kind of type comic strippy type stuff.
Or even Dick Tracy. Wasn't Dick Tracy with Warren Beatty?
That's a good shout.
That?
With Warren Beatty and Madonna. That
was
contemporary of the Keaton Batman, if I remember right. So that makes sense that people would be executives will be looking at comic strip materials to adapt. But how do you come across the Rocketeer?
Dick Tracy, I guess it's 1990.
1990.
Well, was it really? So right after Batman. So.
It's for me. Again, I agree with Joe on this one. The book for Rocketeer fans, it was very sporadic when you see it in the UK, and invariably, it would seem to me that you'd only get like the 4 or 5 pages of serial, and then you'd have to stop and then get the next whatever. Because it was so sporadic, I'm surprised it found an audience over here. And we're a country who's used to anthology style comics. If you look at 2000 AD, for example, and what Marvel UK did to break down their weekly comics that we had back then. Right. But it was just trying to get the damn thing consistently.
Yeah.
That was the hard part.
Yeah.
I've always loved the Rocketeer. I've always loved Betty, but that's the story between us three, and don't tell my wife. Thank you very much.
It's between us and all the listeners, Johnny.
Yeah. Oh, I am so screwed then. Thanks, guys. Cheers. Yeah. Okay. All right. There you go. 3 up, 3 down. We've had.
It was so easy, so smooth. Yeah. But I think if I can speculate, I think it's just Dave Stevens' talent. It just wouldn't go away. People wanted to see his work. After reading this again, I have so many questions because I don't know what he did for a living. I mean, did he make enough off this book just to survive, or was he working on other work? I can't imagine a guy like this not being not working 24/7. So I think it's the strength of the writing. I think the writing is just as strong as the art. I would say that just kept people talking until he produced something else.
I think when it comes to Dave Stevens, the name's synonymous with the Rocketeer. And I think it's hard to move across from there. I'm sure he must have done some work after that. Sure. That's another show, definitely.
Yeah, we'll chase him down. Chase his work down.
We'll chase him down. Dave Stevens, if you're watching the show, feel free to drop me a line.
I think he's passed away, but
in that case, don't do that.
Don't call us, please.
Don't, no zombies, please.
Yes, he passed away in 2008.
Apologies
Yeah.
for my daft joke. All right, okay. So as I said, 3 up, 3 down. You've had the Great Megahertz, which is available on Kickstarter. We show some stuff for Joe. You can follow Joe on his Twitter feed there. Excellent. Cool. And for more information, check out Joe's website. Okay. And that'll have everything that's up to date, as well as potential. You do commissions as well, right, Joe?
Yes, sure.
Yeah. Just don't ask for a Betty Meets the Shadow Man one, for Christ's sake.
Oh, that would be good. Oh, yeah. How cool was that, right? Did you recognize the pulp characters in here? The Doc Savage.
I noticed some of his gang. I didn't notice.
And his gang, Monk and Ham. Ham was the lawyer, and Monk was like a prominent chemist, if I remember right. These guys.
Yeah. Yep, I recognized. Yes. Yeah, I recognized the. Yeah.
Yes, and I think there's a Long Tom shows up in the back, a little further along, and the Shadow, right? Lamont Cranston.
I love the Shadow.
Civilian Identity. Does a good job with him too, right?
Yeah. Who knows the evil that lurks in the hearts of men? The Shadow knows.
I guess we'll talk about the Shadow next time.
Oh yeah, I'm down with some Shadow. He's been all over the place. The Shadow. I remember DC had it for ages.
Yeah, I have the DC comics. That's about it.
And then Dark Horse had him with.
Really?
We could do a show on like old school golden age characters that had their own radio shows. So we do Shadow.
You just want to talk about Superman again?
Could we do the Spirit?
Yeah, Spirit. Oh, Will Eisner, of course.
Eisner.
Yeah,
I'll break out my sketchbooks for a while. I had Eisner as a teacher for a while. I would take his comic books, and I would pick like the best 5 panels from a particular story, and I'd literally paste them in my sketchbook and like write what I liked about them and try to recreate that kind of technique that he used. I did that as pages and pages. My sketchbook.
I don't think he was well serviced by the movie, I have to say. But
the Spirit movie, I hadn't seen that. I have not seen that.
All right, don't forget to check out the UCPN for all your favorite shows, including Professor.
The No Prize Podcast, all about Marvel Comics, the MCU, and Disney Plus.
And of course, you've got the Definitive Crusade, which is all about DC books, and probably some DC films every now and again. Joe, thank you so much for being a super guest, man. Well done.
It's a pleasure to see you guys again. Thank you for having me on. Always fun. Always fun. And the 13th Crusader, just so you know, I know a little bit about his mission. He's going to come back one less, so he's going to be the 12th Crusader, I think.
Hey, check your schedule, Joe.
I should have quit earlier.
We might not need him back. That's what I'm saying.
Okay.
What is joking? 13th, whatever.
He's the greatest.
He's pretty cool. He's good. He's a good guy.
And is he on the video? Does he go on video with you guys?
No.
Does he have like a big black silhouette or something?
Yeah, the Invisible Man.
Generally, he puts like it's a black screen, but his icon, his avatar is the book. It's always a character from the book that he's chosen to talk about.
Oh, okay.
So if he was talking about Valiant, for example, he'd have Ninjak in because Ninjak's his favorite.
Yeah, he loves
character.
Ninjak. Yeah. Yes. I've done a bunch of commissions of Ninjak for him.
Well, Ninjak over here is dead as dishwater. Honestly, I've got his first appearance twice, and I can't get rid of it for love nor money. So
There was an issue of Secret Weapons which had Ninjak in it.
yeah, okay, cool. There you go.
Let's
You'll
get
have to
out of
put-
here.
You have to take that down. All
I
right.
could talk your ears off all day long.
Well, there's another show in that then. Right.
Yep.
I've been your host, Johnny the Machine Hughes. Thanks to the professor. As I said, Joe, thanks for spending the time. Really do appreciate it and how busy you are. And for everybody else, that's it. Adios.
See ya.